I see my name in shining lights, yeah, a different city every night. Oh, I swear the world better prepare for when I'm a billionaire.
It's time to get down to business on the weekend's #1 business program. Known as the King of Networking, your host, Shalom Klein, has worked with thousands of entrepreneurs and created countless jobs. So, to success. Let's get down to business.
And indeed, we are all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship and business. We talk a lot about business here. You're on with Get Down to Business, and I'm your host, Shalom Klein. Remember, you can always download podcasts from Get Down to Business on my website at shalomklein.com. And while you are there, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at Shalom Klein. It's going to be a jam-packed week of content and information you will not want to miss. It's a live show. You can call into the studio, 312-642-5600, 312-642-5600. And a good reminder to check out our sponsor, our good friends at Tandem HR, your solution center. Check them out online, tandemhr.com, or give them a call, 630-928-0510. So I'm joined here in studio by Tom Day, who is really bringing some fantastic industries, technologists, and revitalizing the Midwest Rust Belt by driving the development of new technologies and new products. Tom, it's actually fascinating and remarkable what you're doing and innovating, bring a fantastic energy. Welcome to the program.
Great to be here, Shalom. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. So let's start with the name. Yep. It's a unique name, and I know that there's a story behind it.
There is. Invent 2026. So what happens in 2026? America celebrates our 250th birthday, July 4th, 2026. And we got this started last year, 2016. And we mapped out a 10-year strategy for, as you say, reviving the Midwest economy based on applied research, entrepreneurship, new product development from new inventions that we see coming out of applied research labs here in the Midwest. So at a high level, you know, we all want to be the next Silicon Valley here in Chicago and in the Midwest. Okay, great. But how are we going to do that? And we gathered folks from the University of Chicago, Northwestern, Oregon National Laboratory, University of Illinois, who is one of our initial sponsors, and we asked their leaders of research, how can we drive an innovation economy here in Chicago and the Midwest through your research assets, and we mapped out this strategy, and that's what we're doing right now.
So the Midwest, it's not typically described as a hub for technology. You think of Silicon Valley. Why the Midwest? And when you talk about an innovation corridor, let's talk practically. What will it look like? What type of companies, what type of individuals, entrepreneurs are you hoping to attract and to call the Midwest home?
So why the Midwest, first of all? Why the Midwest is because we have so many assets here in the region. The people, of course, the talent, the research universities, the laboratories. Chicago is the only city in America with two national laboratories, Department of Energy laboratories, talking about Oregon and Fermilab. There are a ton of inventions that need to find their way into the market through new ventures. We don't see corporations doing R&D internally the way they used to maybe 10, 20, 30 years ago with Bell Labs and Xerox Labs and others. So it really does fall upon startups to drive new product development. And if Oregon or Northwestern or UChicago or any of these research hubs need to find a way to prototype and test and bring their inventions into the market, it has to come through a startup, and we're trying to engineer these collaborations. What this will look like is, well, it will look like a lot of what we saw in the Bay Area maybe 60, 70 years ago. So let's tell a story of Silicon Valley. After World War II, you saw a ton of federal and defense dollars going into specifically Stanford's engineering program to go design platforms, communications platforms, radar platforms, to go fight the Soviets, okay? And from that emerged a local innovation economy where these researchers were then encouraged to go start their own businesses, one of which was Hewlett and Packard. Hewlett and Packard were engineering students at Stanford at the time. It is connecting the dots that happened in the Bay Area a couple generations ago. A similar story could be told in Boston today. That is what we're trying to do here. But what are those dots? The applied research assets, entrepreneurs, hopefully a few listening to your program right now, and public officials, also corporations. We want to drive M&A activity. So instead of entrepreneurs kind of fishing around for very few venture dollars that exist in the Midwest region, we're trying to kind of drive the development of new products and then support corporates to acquire them at the end.
So we're chatting with Tom Day, the founder of Invent 2026. Really, really interesting story. But Tom, on your website, you talk a lot about how you are developing the strategy and executing on that strategy to make to bring this dream and turn it into a reality. What steps need to be taken? You just mentioned elected officials and politicians. What changes need to take place in order to make this happen?
So I can speak to the city of Chicago, and I will let other cities kind of, we'll put aside a conversation about other cities. But in the city of Chicago, we have built 90 or 80 to 90 incubators, about 1.5 million square feet of co-working spaces, and by that I mean kind of these open bay, jazzy working spaces where you see a bunch of folks in jeans and T-shirts in their 20s and early 30s running around and building an app, okay? We argue that 10 years ago there was a real opportunity to drive new software platforms, new mobile applications with relatively little money and scale very quickly. And there was just a ton of seed capital that flowed toward these mobile apps, in hopes of building, Groupon, in hopes of building, all these social platforms that emerged after 2007. Well, that story was relevant in 2007. It is not relevant in 2007. Mm-hmm. Okay. What will drive innovation economies, we are convinced, in the next 10 years, is the development of sectors in the material sciences in particular. And that's great for us in the Midwest. Well, I mentioned, when we got folks from Northwestern, UChicago, all the research laboratories together a year ago. One of the questions we asked was, what sectors, what clusters are we competitive in the Midwest region? And food and ag, we have always been a food and agricultural economy in the Midwest. Mm-hmm. Energy, batteries coming out of Argonne, water technology. 80% of the potable water that exists in the North American continent exists, in the Midwest region or the Great Lakes region. And in infrastructure technology, we're told that half the goods that flow by rail and by road flow through the United States, flow through the state of Illinois. We're a transportation hub. My ask of elected officials and leaders of business in Chicago, but also in the entire region, is instead of doing everything we can to bring a company like Amazon to locate its second headquarters here, we support that. But I mean, let's think a little bit more deeply and critically here. Let's build these clusters and think of our region in terms that we define these clusters and support technology and entrepreneurship in what we are competitive in. And that has always been, food and ag, infrastructure, water, and energy. We have the research assets here in the region. We just need kind of a cultural shift and a focus on the part of our elected officials to define and grow these clusters.
Fascinating. So it sounds like you have a great, clear vision on how Illinois, but Chicago specifically can develop into that, as you said, that corridor of the Silicon Valley East, right here in the Midwest. Very, very interesting. Tom Day, again, the founder of Invent 2026. Thanks so much for joining us on the program. We are running out of time, and I want to make sure our listeners can find you. I know you've got a lot of information out there. What's the best way to reach you and find a little bit more information?
Absolutely. Invent2026.com and follow us on Twitter at Invent2026. We'll have some announcements coming up very shortly about some programs that will be launched. And if you're an entrepreneur, we need you. Follow us. We're going to have some things to engage you with very shortly.
Okay. Well, Tom, thanks so much for joining us on the program. You can download podcasts from Get Down to Business on my website at shalomklein.com. And while you are there, don't forget to follow me on Twitter at shalomklein. That's where you get a sneak peek of our guests coming up future weeks on the show, all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. As always, check out our sponsors, Tandem HR, your solution center. You can find them online, tandemhr.com. Or give them a call, 630-928-0510. But speaking of entrepreneurship, you don't want to touch that dial because coming up after the break, we've got more tips, advice, and some fantastic guests, some fantastic resources, all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. You're listening to Get Down to Business. We'll be right back.
How can you